Jim?
I'm Jim. I've been around for a while. Let's leave it at that. Some of us are, and Maria, by the way, has been around 1 year less than me. So we're still around.
Right.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah.
What is it? 81 and 82 or 80 or something like that.
That's
Wow.
the year we joined, not necessarily our age.
Good one. We have Mary.
Mary Anderson. I'm also, besides being on this committee, I'm the chair of the Aging Committee.
Thank you, Mary. Bruce.
Yeah, I'm on Housing and Human Services, and I have a lot more to go before I get a gold watch like Jim and Maria.
They didn't give us no washing.
And we're being joined by other community board members, Maria Luna, as Jim formally introduced earlier.
Right. I've been around as for a long time, as Jim says. So I'm also a member of the Aging and also of the Youth Services and Education Committee.
And I want to thank Chanel in the office for helping us host the meeting.
Hi, I'm Chanel, the Community Associate in Community Board 12. Have a good meeting.
Want it off the Bluetooth?
And we have Marshall.
Oh,
He's
yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Marshall Vanderpool joins us as well.
Yeah, good evening. I'm Marshall Vanderpool. Currently, I'm the first vice president of Dyckman Resident Association. I am a public member of the Housing and Human Services Committee. And at times I am promoted to panelist on the Traffic and Transportation Committee, and I'll land my plane here.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, Debbie, we can.
Oh,
You're good.
okay. All
And
right.
our chair, Debbie, joins us as well. Good to see you, Debbie.
Thank you. I apologize to all. I've never had that problem. Logged into my computer. It said your microphone's not happening right now. We can't figure it out. All right. So thanks for getting us started, Leo. I think before we pass over to Danny Randell from MTA, I'm just going to ask Chanel if you can promote, is Jamila here from Carmen's office? She just wanted to make a quick announcement before we got into things. And then also if you could promote Kimberly Rancourt. Oh no, she is already promoted, sorry. And
we do have, sorry, from DOT, Patrick Kennedy hasn't been promoted and he'll be doing our
okay,
presentation.
great.
I don't see Jamila in the attendee side.
All right, she might be joining a few minutes late. Thank you, Chanel, I appreciate it. Okay. So I asked Danny Randell to come besides, one, to meet us all. Two, because we do have some significant projects underway with MTA. And in the case of the one train at Dyckman, I think we're getting pretty near the opening of that elevator. So I was curious how things were going on there. And then obviously we have two different projects going on in the 8 train station at 181st Street. And then also, Danny, after you cover those things, let's just tell people a little bit about the art that will be coming to 181st Street as well for the 8 train, because that is pretty exciting.
No problem. So first of all, good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me tonight. My name is Danny Randell. I'm an Assistant Director of Government and Community Relations for New York City Transit. I'm covering community boards 10 and 12 in Manhattan. I also cover community boards 1, 2, 3, 5, and 7 in Queens for the MTA. So I've covered this board before. So I'm excited to actually meet everyone in person, or not in person, but see people's faces. And I'm here to deliver some pretty good news, mostly, honestly. Like, I'll go through some of the updates that Debbie had asked me to get some questions on. By the way, Debbie is excellent, really great partner. Thank you for working with our office. I know you wear many hats, so thank you for your work in all of those. So let's start with the M100. That was something that Debbie had asked, kind of why was it included in the Bronx redesign, what's going on with the stops. So the redesigns are, yes, borough-based, but they're largely also organized by the depot that the buses run out of. So if a depot is in the Bronx, the M100 originates out of that depot. That is usually the explanation for why the M100 would be involved. But in general, that's been a big strategy of our redesigns, bus stop consolidation. We're finding that in places where it's been implemented, so in Staten Island, in parts of the Bronx, in parts of Queens, where we've done that on separate initiatives with DOT, the results are pretty predictable. The buses are going faster because they're stopping less, they're weaving in and out of traffic less, and they're getting people to where they want to go at a better clip. So that's really the reason behind those kinds of changes and why they were included as a part of the Bronx bus redesign, which impacted the M100. Of course, there are a ton of routes in Community Board 12 that go between the Bronx and Manhattan. So that's why some of the Manhattan routes were also impacted by the Bronx redesign. And so that's a good question, or a good lead up into the Manhattan redesign, right? So
Yes.
we did Staten Island already a couple years back. We are in the implementation phase of the Bronx. We're in the draft phase for Queens. And the next one that we're going to work on is Brooklyn. So in Queens, we moved out of the new draft phase into a proposed final plan phase. And that is slated to be released in the first quarter, I think, of 2023. After that, there will be another round of outreach before our planning team comes up with a final plan to propose to the MTA board that would be voted on. We usually do 2 boroughs roughly at the same time. So I think the next focus will be mostly about Queens and Brooklyn. We're in the very early stages for Brooklyn, for what it's worth. We've released an existing conditions report, which is the precursor to a proposed draft plan, which is currently being worked on and should be released shortly. So we don't really have an ETA on the Manhattan bus redesign yet. I would expect it to come after a phase closer to implementation of the Queens redesign, which is a while off. But this will be something that the community will know about. We've done extensive outreach in Queens. We did 14 virtual events, 15 pop-up events with the Metro Card Van, and 5 outdoor open house style of events. So, we're not afraid to do the outreach, and we want the community feedback. We want the community involvement. And as we keep going and refining our process, by the time we get to Manhattan, we should be a well-oiled redesign machine.
Well, so no, fair enough. I've just been quite curious because,
Yeah.
So just so you know, this committee was involved to some extent in the Bronx redesign, in the sense that we have a sense for how many town halls are held and stuff like that. But because of all the ways that we link with certain bus lines, some of that was presented to us as well. It's just that, you know, that'll be the next opportunity for obviously this community to speak directly to some of these issues. Let's,
I
I'm
can
just
do
trying to
the-
weigh if we should wait till you're done and then take a question, but you know, Mary, I know this sort of came from you, so why don't you go ahead and ask a question before Danny moves on to the other topics?
Not exactly a question, it's kind of a statement. Because I myself, being a senior with a disability, this change for the M100, I mean, there are all the stops that the BX7 and the M100 do not stop at anymore. And it's created a big, big problem for the seniors and disabled in our community. And, you know, it's really rough.
Yeah, so I think what's important about that too is that, you know, we go over our schedules quarterly, we go over our operations every quarter. So, you know, nothing is completely permanent and we're closed off to hearing any ideas. Obviously, we have to stay within the framework of our redesign plans, which is to speed up bus service. Because the reality is, every time a bus has to pull out of traffic, that takes time. It has to wait for people to come on, and then it has to get back onto traffic, and that also takes time. So I think what we've tried to do is balance the need for folks to be able to access the bus network. And one of the big goals of the redesign is to increase access to subway stations that are accessible for folks. So right now our bus network is 100% accessible, which is pretty crazy when you think about the scope and how big the bus network is. It's 100% accessible. So we're trying to connect more folks to accessible services. We can always do more, of course, and I'm about to give updates on 2 stations that are in this community board where ADA access will be significantly improved. But it's a balancing act. You know, we understand that, and our goal is to try and preserve the stations or the stops that are important to the infrastructure of the community. So if it stops in front of a senior center, if it stops in front of a community center, if it stops in front of a religious institution, you know, those are things that we try and consider when it comes to the decisions that we make as it relates to taking away bus stops. But it's just, and don't get me wrong, I completely understand the struggle. You have to walk more. I totally get that. But we're hoping that the trade-off is better service, faster service that more people can use. And we'll have to see what the numbers bear out as it relates to the Bronx and the M100. But all I could tell you is that we've been open to community feedback as it relates to what stops, what needs to stay, what needs to go. And because we're so far off from the Manhattan process, the community can really take its time and evaluate, you know, what are the key stops that need to be in place? What are the key stops that serve the neighborhood? That's not to say that every single suggestion that's made is you know, incorporated in the plan. We have to stay within our goals, but I don't think it's as rigid as it might be perceived to be.
All right, thank you. Jim, did you have something before we move on to the next piece of Dan's update?
Yes, I did, because I'm in the same boat, you know, and Maria Luna, in fact, on my screen, we're at the top, you know, in terms of, you know, not being quite as mobile as we once were. And my comment, you know, and I understand, obviously, the fewer times the bus stops, the faster it's going to go. Of course, if you go too far with that, if the bus doesn't stop at all, it goes real fast. But the point is that I want to stress that your agency not be overzealous in getting rid of the bus stops, because, you know, the frail folks and the elderly folks and so on, you're just going to make their life more difficult. And the bus service is, not just for the sprightly of Step, it's for everyone. So I just wanted to put in my 2 cents.
Of course. And once this redesign process really launches in earnest, there will be a lot of opportunities for this community to weigh in, for this community board to weigh in, for members to weigh in. And we'll make sure that Debbie and Ebenezer and the entire crew are informed along the way, so that we get your feedback, we get that information when we're at that point. But I should stress that we are pretty far off, I would say, at this point.
Okay. We're all
No.
eager and we'll look forward. Okay, so on to the next,
Yes.
our two stations that
Yes,
are being.
Dykeman and 181st. So Dykeman, based on the most recent schedule updates and construction progress, the ADA milestone for Dykeman is anticipated around the second quarter of 2023. The elevator steel is installed. The hatch is scheduled for next week. Equipment deliveries and installations are ongoing, so it could be earlier. They may just be hedging. The elevator passageway, steel and walls are installed. The boarding area work is complete. There's still some more work relating to some of the fire alarm systems, and a few other mechanical systems too. But yeah, I think that's. I don't know what the original date
See, that's the thing.
for
I
that was, because that
really
might predate
thought
me.
the original was the end of this year. So I think, and maybe I just have that wrong, because I think we would have heard about it if there was, you said second quarter 2023?
That is what it. That's what
The current,
that's the update
okay.
that I got. Yeah.
Okay. All right, fair enough.
And then, so for 181st, I have no new updates in relation to the time frame for the ADA work. That is going as it's supposed to. However, we are still in like as you said, the early and middle stages of the 181st Street A. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, there's no. So right now, escalators 117, 18, and 19 are in their well ways. There's a little more escalator installation. There's one more that has to be done. Yeah, there's some installation work that has to be done on those escalators too. We just found that there is an issue with 2 transformers that were damaged. And they should be coming by the end of November. And there's one more faulty amplifier switch that we need to replace. We don't think it's going to delay the project right now, but it might. Our project team wanted me to kind of play those there. So what I'll do is I'll keep on them relating to the 2 pieces that we need, and one of the switches that might delay this project. Anytime that we do construction in a station as old as 181st, and with the topographical challenges that come with it, there's always things that can happen along the way. But what I will make sure is I will keep on the project team as it relates to these transformers and the amp switch. They haven't told me that the February 2023 date is changed. So I'm hoping that we can keep that, or keep as close to that as possible, because I understand how much of an inconvenience this is for this station right now.
Yeah, it's a tough go if you're
Yeah.
anywhere needing, coming out the
Sure.
south side. It's, but, all right.
No, I completely understand, and I'm here to keep getting the answers. I can't always, give the answer that folks want. I can only give the answer that I can provide, with the information that I have, and I always advocate, for what the board is looking for. and I understand we want these done as soon as we can, especially Dykeman, because that started a little earlier than the 181st Street project. So I'll keep on that, and I'll keep updating
Yeah.
the community board as I get more information. And Debbie, you can always reach out to me whenever a member has a question or whenever somebody from the committee has a question. I'm always happy to ask. Me and Debbie have a very open line of communication. So I'm always happy.
Well, we were thrilled that you've been assigned to us again. I think last time we had our hands on you for about 3 weeks before you got moved around. So we're so happy, and we appreciate all the support and responsiveness. So I just want to tell people though that Danny and I had a really sensational opportunity last week to participate in. We got to see some art that was that is being considered for the 181st Street A train station. And I want to say something that actually I think the committee will find interesting, and I certainly did. You know, up in the Uptown area, we had a lot of stations that haven't gotten a redo and a facelift in a long time. And there were some that got some a few years ago, 163rd Street on the Sea and et cetera. But felt like we were getting less of those. And obviously people are always interested in the things getting updated. But what I learned sort of through the back door at this session was that because there's so much emphasis now in the capital projects to bring the ADA accessibility, that there are far fewer of these facelift for the station, like whole station things, but there's thankfully many of these ADA projects. So, which is to say, the art is part of the project, the ADA project, and so it will be on that north end of the station. And we, because it's considered a piece of procurement for this project, there's actually was a lot of confidentiality that I had to sign as being a non-MTA person about like what artists were reviewed, etc. But I will say that it was so, you know, we had heard some concerns from the community, and I know CB12 is always vocal about this, that we want these opportunities, whether it's jobs or whether it's art or whatever it is, we want to see that come from our community. And certainly when it relates to art, where we have so many artists who live in CB12 doing amazing work, that, you know, we were just excited to be part of the process. And there were certainly a good many people who do have connections to CB12 if they don't live here right now, but etc. That doesn't mean that's entirely, they do have access to some of the finest artists, like doing stuff these days. And the sort of collection, the art collection that MTA has is actually like astonishing, you know, through these murals. So these mosaic murals. But again, we'd heard I'd gotten some feedback from other board members about like, why don't we have more art in our stations? We have them in a couple, but not that many. And then lo and behold, we got this invitation to participate in reviewing stuff. So that'll be part of the new elevators, you know, the project to bring elevators down to the platform level. So which will be pretty exciting. All
That was
right.
a pretty unique experience, I would say.
It really was. It was a neat thing. It was long,
It really was.
but it was really something to be able to participate in. So I don't mean to be rushy, but I do. But Dan, I have DOT here, and I was trying to get them started, you know, in the nowish range. So I think so I have 2 attendees with hands up, but I'm only going to take questions right now for MTA before it. So David Vassar, did you have something MTA related?
Oh, hi. Thanks. I didn't realize I was noticeable in this format. I mean, I am here because a transportation alternatives activist working primarily for Bronx and Upper Manhattan regions for safer street spaces and bridge spaces for pedestrians and cyclists. Suggested that some of us attend. I was interested in what I think may be an upcoming discussion of some of the East River bridges.
Yeah.
Improving.
Oh, great.
Is that slated?
Okay, so we're
Yeah, okay.
all right. So if you wouldn't mind, we're gonna get started with that now. And so we'll have opportunity to take questions there. London, are you in the same boat? If you just unmute.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, my concern is about bridges, especially the George Washington Bridge. I think it's overcrowded, and when they're doing work on it, it causes a major delay. Not only that, the bridge is old, and based upon the amount of traffic that has to go across it, I think it creates a more hazard for the bridge of reliability for how long it's been there. So my suggestion is, I mean, it might not sound 100% feasible, but I think it would be a good idea if it's possible, if they could create another tunnel, maybe next to the bridge, like how they got the Holland Tunnel down there, the other tunnel, Lincoln Tunnel. And I guess that will alleviate some of the traffic off the George Washington Bridge. That's basically my concern.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for that.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know if this is the right.
Yeah. I got the comment. It is the world's busiest bridge, and it has a lot of impacts on this community. And it's something that, as a committee and as a board, you know, all of the impacts do come up a lot. But that is Port Authority. So I'm just gonna kind of move on. Max Murphy, did you have something for MTA before I let Daniel go?
Yeah, I have one question about safety in our subway stations. What is the MTA doing to increase safety, or at least the perception of safety, in our transit network, specifically in CB12?
Okay, that's a great question. So obviously we know that's a big thing on our ridership's mind. It's not really the MTA by itself. It's the MTA, the City of New York, and the State of New York have come together to commit more patrol officers on the platforms and in the train cars, more assistance to folks who are riding on the trains, you know, sleeping on the trains, the last stop sweeps of the cars. I do believe that the city has contracted, that the MTA has contracted some private security guards to try and reduce fare evasion. So it's not just the MTA by itself. It's the MTA, the City of New York, and the State of New York are trying to put more police presence on the stations to patrol them and to try and make folks feel more safe. And over the weekend, we had our largest weekend ridership days since the pandemic started. On Saturday and Sunday, we are at 85% of our pre-pandemic ridership for the weekend. So I'm hoping we're hoping that that's a sign that people are continuing to return to the system, that they are starting to feel more safe. And anytime there's an issue with any of the stations in this community board, please reach out to Debbie and she can reach out to me. And we'll make sure that if there are any red flags or anything, you know, graffiti, quality of life stuff, we try to and send that information to our stations team so they can address it as quickly as they can. So that's what they're trying to do. We think it's working. We hope it's working, and we're not going to stop until people feel as safe as they possibly can, because you should feel safe in the New York City subway system.
All right, so we're going to take one more hand, if it is for MTA. And I will say that now they're also announcing, because I was actually on the subway quite a bit in the past few weeks, past week, and they're announcing at any station where there's personnel in the system, they're announcing it. I'm sorry, Bruce, I didn't see you had your hand up.
Yeah, just to follow up with what Danny's saying is, of course, it was marathon weekend, so ridership pumped up at people from all over the world, and it was handled really well. I was one of them, kind of go up and down, and you guys did a good job. What do you expect it to float back down to under normal circumstances? 50%? I mean, I know you're under the gun to bring it back to where it was in order to meet your budgets. Do you have any projections like that?
No, I mean, I don't have any, internal projections other than what's made public. I mean, I think we see the range it hovers around during the week. Mondays and Fridays, people are working from home. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, more people are taking the system in. Weekend ridership has been recovering at a faster rate than weekday ridership. So we've actually seen it go up, recover quicker on the weekends than it has during the week. But so, yeah, I bet the marathon definitely had something to do with that. But, we'll take it, right? I mean, we want the more people, the better. I don't have any expectations. You never know what's out there, right? This time last year, we thought things were going very well in a steady direction. And then, we had this variant came and kind of took us back down a little bit. And we've been recovering from that. So I think we see where the range typically is. And hopefully as the world continues to march on and the numbers come back up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Luke, did you have something for the MTA? Because I really would, I do want to move on.
Yes, and I understand that. Thank you so much. I just wanted to make a comment. I know there's been a lot of talk about crime and concern about crime. I think for me as a subway rider, I am more concerned about getting places in time. And I think if the MTA had faster, more reliable service, such as 6-minute service, a train that comes within 6 minutes of you getting to the station platform, you don't have to wait on the station platform for 20 minutes waiting for the train, not knowing where to go if something happens on the station platform. So I think one of the things that the MTA can really improve is accessibility and reliability of its service. And that will go way far to improve safety and the comfort that subway systems are better with more people. And the more people, to attract more people, you need better service. So if there are more people on the trains, you're going to see that safety in numbers is a thing. So let's get the MTA funded. Let's approve congestion pricing, and let's move on to the Washington Bridge for People campaign. Thanks.
Luke, thanks for your comments. Mary?
I just wanted to ask a question about the M3 northbound. I'm told by the folks that live up on Fort George Hill that the 193rd Street St. Nicholas stop northbound has been eliminated. And this is causing great hardship for the people, the seniors that live in 3 buildings on Fort George, 2 on Fort George Hill and 1 on Fairview. Because first of all, they have to traverse the hills there that those buildings are on to get, to and from the bus stops. But with that bus stop being eliminated, the bus stop that they have to get off on is 189th, 190th, and makes it even further for them to have to walk. Plus, a lot of those people are disabled, have disabilities. They have canes and walkers and all kinds of implements. So I wondered why that stop was eliminated.
Well, Danny, if I'm presuming, I mean, if there's been something eliminated, we would have been told. So Dan, can you try to chase that down? Because that's also where the bus turns around. So,
Well, it continues
I
down
don't know.
Fort George Avenue.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm happy to look into that.
that'd be great.
Thank you.
That'd be
Thank
great.
you.
Problem.
Okay,
Okay.
guys, we really, Marshall and then Jim. Can you unmute Marshall?
Can you hear me now? Okay. I guess a comment and a question. First, I guess to the attendee who was talking about the travel times. I mean, I guess since I'm thinking about March, I have been traveling a regular commute from, I guess, Dyckman Street to Metro Tech. My app, I use Transit. I don't use the MTA app, but my app is pretty accurate as far as when that train arrives and the expectation of when it arrives at Metro Tech. So I get what you're saying about a 6-minute, but if you got an app, you can kind of time your commute a little bit better. That's a comment. Question, as far as the work that's being done between 168th and 207th Street on the A train, is there any comment you can make about that? And I'll land my plane right here.
Thanks, Marshall.
168th and 207th.
Yeah,
So I'm
no,
still trying to acclimate myself with some of the issues up here. So what I'll do is I'll follow up offline about that and
Yeah,
get Debbie
yeah.
some information.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a series of weekend closures. It's a good point, Marshall. And it obviously caused a lot of disruption. I think there's one more this coming weekend, but yeah, if you could get us like however far out they project, because, and it has been announced in advance. I'm not saying it's not, but it is so significant for people uptown, as you can imagine. So if you can get information, that would be really helpful. So Marshall, thanks for that question. And Jim,
if I
please.
could just jump in 1 second, it relates to work because of Hurricane Sandy. That's been 10 years ago. And bye.
Oh, I see. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Jim?
I just want to give a shout out to someone who's actually affected by the problem with the number 3 bus service that Mary was talking about. On this call, she may not want to talk, is Lillian Mercado, who actually worked in our community board office decades ago. And I met her in the supermarket and she told me the whole story and she told me she would be here, and she is. And I think she's one of the people who is adversely affected by what seems to be this bus stop on the number 3 that disappeared.
Yeah, so I say, Danny, if there's even any way to get an answer tomorrow, like that we've got some urgency around, because that's weird. I mean, I don't know if there's some road work or something going on, but people need to know what's happening so that they can make plans. But
okay, of course.
Okay, so Danny, you stay as long as you'd like, or you don't stay as long as you'd like. Thank you so much for being here. We'll look forward to seeing you again soon, I hope. And then before we hand over to DOT, I'm just going to give Jamila from Carmen's office the mic for a moment to make an announcement before we get started with that presentation.
Thanks for having me, everyone. Have a good night.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'm Jamila from Carmen de la Rosa's office. I just want to inform you guys that we'll be having a town hall on, and our topic this month is transportation. It's going to be on the 17th at 6 p.m. in Fort Washington Collegiate Church, right there on the corner of Fort Washington and 181st. We're still finalizing the panelists and the groups they're going to be featured there, but I wanted to share that with you guys to make sure you guys attend and also spread the word. Obviously, Community Board 12 will be present. Debbie will be one of our panelists, just to put you on the spot. But we will send the flyer out to everyone. I'm gonna send it so that it's blasted to everybody and also to you guys personally, so you have at least a save the date. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you, Debbie, for the opportunity.
Thank you. It's good to see you as always. Kimberly, Lyle, I know you have a larger team here. I'm gonna pass to you to talk to us about the Washington Bridge. And if you could just obviously introduce the team you have here. I see Patrick. And I
Sure.
think you've got one more. Yeah.
Yes, hi. So I'm Kimberly Rancourt from the Department of Transportation's Manhattan Borough Commissioner's Office, joined by Lyle Blackwood from our office. And then we have on tonight from our bike team, Sean Macias and Patrick Kennedy, who will do our presentation. And just as an intro, this is a project that we're very excited about for the Washington Bridge. It builds on previous work on both sides of the bridge and also on some previous planning efforts that involve some fairly extensive community outreach around improving connections over the Harlem River for bikes and pedestrians. And so I will let Patrick take it away.
All right, excellent. Just going to share my screen 1 second. So hoping everyone can see the presentation now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. Excellent. So yes, my name is Patrick. I am a project manager with the bike unit here at DOT. And as Kim said, I'm very excited to present to you our proposal for a proposed redesign of the Washington Bridge. So for this proposal, we're going to talk about the background, about the neighborhoods on both sides of the bridge, the existing bicycle and bus networks that feed into to the bridge now. Then we'll go over the proposal itself. I'll talk about the bridge span, and then I'll talk about the Manhattan side improvements, the Bronx side improvements, and then finally addressing some of the traffic impacts. We'll address that in the making it work section before I wrap it up with a nice neat summary. Okay, so to begin, so DOT, we have the largest bicycle network in North America. We just recently celebrated our 1500th lane mile in the Bronx, so we were very proud of that. That was about a month ago. So yeah, we are growing that network and still growing that. Some sort of high level statistics about how many people are riding. About 880,000 people ride a bike regularly, at least several times a month. And over 500,000 people are commuting on an average daily basis. We've had a huge increases in cycling in the last 10 years. And in 2021, there were 27 million city bike trips in New York City. So cycling has been growing for a while and it's definitely here to stay. In terms of safety for cycling, we did a safety study recently. We published this on our website. But we found that there was a great reduction in the risk of injury for cyclists for standard lanes, but also more importantly for protected lanes. So 34% reduction of risk of injury for cyclists in protected lanes. And then on the highest risk streets, that risk goes down. It's reduced by over 60%. So we've been definitely trying to build out as many protected bike lanes as we can across the city because we see it as one of our most effective safety treatments on a corridor basis. So for the neighborhoods for High Bridge, from Morris Heights on the Bronx side and Washington Heights on the Manhattan side, we find that according to the census, the majority of people who live in these neighborhoods, they're the ones that are close to the Washington Bridge, they live in car-free households and they use transit to get to work. And all too often, that transit is slow and it's unreliable. So that is something that we are trying to address with this project. So the recent expansion of the bicycle network in this neighborhood on the Bronx side, of course, we have University Avenue and E.L. Grant Highway, both pretty much the same roadway but with different names, connecting to the Washington Bridge there, those two arrows on the right. And then on the left in the Manhattan side, we recently completed two-way protected bicycle path along Amsterdam Avenue on the park side there that hooks around up at the top. That stops a couple of blocks north of the bridge. There's potential to bring that further south down to meet the bridge, though we don't have a official proposal for that yet, but there is potential to do that, which would essentially link the Washington Bridge on both sides with protected bike lanes. And then for City Bike recently expanded into Community Board 12 and also on the Bronx side as well. And approximately 600,000 City Bike trips began or ended in these three community boards in the last year. And all of those 600,000 trips, about 4.5%, about 27,000 of those trips crossed the Harlem River in some way. So we see that as there's a lot of potential for fostering more interborough cycling trips with this proposal. So this improvements on the bridge for buses, for bus riders, for bicycles, and for pedestrians. There was a letter recently sent to us, co-signed by the Manhattan Borough President, the Bronx Borough President, and then the Council District representatives for both sides of the bridge, asking us for improvements for transit riders, for cyclists, and for pedestrians on this bridge. And then also, as Kim noted before, we have part of our on the longer term of the outreach we've been doing to make improvements on this and other bridges on the Harlem River. We published the plan in 2018, but we had a lot of outreach and a lot of analysis that went back years before that. But this our Connecting Communities plan identified opportunities for bicycle and pedestrian connections between Manhattan and the Bronx, and just in very small type, so I highlighted it on the slide, but the plan recommends a pedestrian and bicycle gateway to the bridge on Yale Grant Highway and University Ave, as well as a two-way path on the Washington Bridge itself. So this is something that we're trying to get this done to just get another connection across the Harlem River for pedestrians and cyclists. And then the bus network. Since the busway was implemented in 2021, bus speeds on West 181st Street have increased at all times of day. And that's a very good thing for people living on both sides of the bridge. Also, I want to note at the bottom of this slide, Washington Bridge carries 5 bus routes and is so that serves about 68,000 riders on a daily basis. So now going to our proposal. So our proposal at a very high level, we want to make a protected bike lane connection between Manhattan and the Bronx. We want to improve conditions for pedestrians, cyclists, and for pedestrians and cyclists getting on and off the bridge. And we want to improve the frequency and accessibility of bus transit. So yeah, our proposal is to create that dedicated connection between Manhattan and the Bronx, to separate cyclists from pedestrians, to give them their own space, and then to improve the bus operations for transit riders who are on the bridge itself. So getting into the specifics of the proposal, we're going to talk about it in 3 different sections. 1, we're going to talk about the bridge span itself. 2, we're going to talk about Manhattan side, Manhattan access to to the bridge, and then we're going to talk about Bronx access on the other side. So the existing bridge design, as I'm sure some of you are aware, being it's in your neighborhood, we've got 3 lanes of vehicle lanes in each direction, and then separated by concrete barrier in the middle. And then we have very narrow sidewalks that are shared by both pedestrians and cyclists on both sides. And in the images on the slide, you can see just how narrow that space is. And so for a lot of people, it's pedestrians 2-way, you've got bikes 2-way, and it's a very, very congested space to have people walking and biking at the same time. And our proposal is to install a 2-way barrier protected lane. Bicycle lane on the north side of the bridge. That's the Manhattan bound side of the bridge. And on the south side of the bridge, to the Bronx side, bound side, is to install a dedicated bus lane. So it'd be a two-way bike lane on the north side, and then a dedicated or eastbound or Bronx-bound bus lane on the south side. So getting into some more specifics of this proposal, if the lane is in the roadway, we would definitely need to reconnect it at both ends. The Bronx end is much easier. On the Manhattan end, we would need to basically connect it through McNally Plaza, which is directly next to the bridge on the north side. And to do this, we would have to transition the bike lane from the roadway here to the plaza. So we would need to basically demo a section of that existing wall to allow the cyclists to get back into the plaza from the dedicated roadway lane, where they would share that plaza until they get back to the roadway network. And where that plaza connects to the roadway network is on Laurel Hill Terrace. And so cyclists and pedestrian access to the bridge would be through that plaza, and then it would just be coming out onto Laurel Hill Terrace to then get to Amsterdam Avenue further west. So here's that same connection in plan view. So cyclists would be coming through that plaza, it's like a shared space for that plaza, and then connecting to the rest of the roadway network on Laurel Hill Terrace. For this, we'd have to redesign that one short block so that instead of having 2 lanes of traffic with parking on both sides, we'd maintain the 2 lanes of traffic, but we'd have to remove 20 parking spaces to include a protected 2-way connection on the north side of that short block to get to Amsterdam Avenue and the rest of the bicycle network. And then shifting into more of a engineering plan view. So that path would then curve around onto Amsterdam Avenue. We'd keep it protected for one short block there, where basically you have the chance to either cross that street if you're going south, so you cross at the crosswalk to then go south on Amsterdam Avenue, or if you want to continue north, you can just continue north from that one short block there. But that would be an additional parking space we'd remove right around that corner there. So the total would be 21, 20 on Laurel Hill Terrace, and then 1 on 182nd Street. I'm sorry, on Amsterdam at 182nd Street. And on the Bronx side, so the arrow on the top of this graphic here shows you the existing shared bicycle and pedestrian path. It's on the north side of the bridge, and it connects to University Avenue at the intersection with the Washington Bridge entrance ramp. And here we have basically a single turn lane feeding that entrance ramp from either the north or the south sides. So for north or southbound traffic from University Ave. And unlike the rest of the bridge, where there's a barrier protecting cyclists and pedestrians from moving vehicles, on the entrance ramp here, there is no barrier to protect cyclists and pedestrians. There's only grade separation. So with this, our proposal would be to take that 2-lane entrance ramp from down to 1 lane, and to continue that barrier protected lane up the entrance ramp to connect to University Ave. This works because the north and southbound University Ave, like the way vehicles would access this, they go at separate times. So southbound vehicles don't go when northbound vehicles go. Northbound vehicles have a dedicated time to turn. So that basically keeps only 1 lane of traffic entering this entrance ramp at any given time. So that allows us to keep that entrance ramp at 1 lane instead of 2. And then for the bus operations there would be a right turn lane at Ogden Avenue. So we would maintain that so that vehicles can access Ogden Avenue, but then the bus lane would resume further east of that. And now on to our making it work section. We're talking more about the specifics of the traffic impacts that this proposal will have. And we're really focused on one intersection. There's really, because on the Bronx side, a lot of the traffic changes that would be necessary to make this path work have already been done as part of the university and the EL Grant Highway projects we did in recent years there. On the Manhattan side, it's the intersection of Amsterdam and 181st Street. That is where we'll be focusing to talk about. And so with that, as part of the busway that was installed in 2021, private vehicles have to turn off of 181st Street at Audubon Avenue, which is 1 block west of Amsterdam here in this graphic. And because of this, most of the movements at this intersection where the bridge basically lands at Amsterdam Avenue are now turns. So westbound vehicles exiting the bridge have a left lane, there's a through lane, and then there's a right turn lane. And the right turn lane movement is very light, the through movement's very light, but the left turn movement is very, very heavy. And what that means is a lot of times you have vehicles that are turning from that center through lane. And what this means for pedestrians in the south crosswalk, which is on the bottom of this graphic here, is that you oftentimes have 2 columns of vehicles that are making a turn over that crosswalk to make a left off the bridge, coming from the Bronx going into Manhattan. So you'll have we call that a double turn, and it's a very unsafe condition, and it's something that we really try to avoid, and we try to do something about whenever we find that it's happening. So that is definitely happening here, where we have multiple lanes of vehicles that are turning left off of the bridge. So our proposal for this intersection is to install a second westbound left turn lane, and to combine the through and the right turn movements into one lane together. This is going to do 2 things. The second left turn lane allows us to give pedestrians crossing that south crosswalk, the one we're really worried about, time that is separated from that heavy westbound left turn. So we can have pedestrians go at one time, and then that heavy left turn goes at a separate time. And then 2, having 2 dedicated left turn lanes at this intersection, so coming off the bridge, it helps keep the Manhattan-bound buses moving across the bridge and through this intersection, because we only have the bus lane on the south side, the Bronx-bound side. This is our way to keep the buses moving across the bridge on the westbound side. And then just one more slide is about the bridge capacity itself. If you're familiar with this bridge, you'll recall in the last couple of years, it was under construction for typically only 2 lanes were functioning at any one time. So during this time, the bridge was still able to function, largely because a significant amount of the vehicles that were using the Washington Bridge are coming from I-95, but then they're headed back to 95. This is more significant in the eastbound direction, but the westbound direction is also this does happen. So reducing the vehicle capacity on the bridge itself makes this a less appealing option for cut-through traffic while preserving the connection for local trips. And so, in summary, we want to dramatically improve safety and comfort for cyclists and pedestrians on a critical route connecting Manhattan and the Bronx. We want to improve crossings for pedestrians at the intersection of Amsterdam Avenue and West 181st Street with that separated time for the south crosswalk. We want to improve bus service for eastbound transit riders with a dedicated lane, and maintain capacity for westbound motorists and transit riders approaching Amsterdam Avenue with the signal changes I was talking about. So that concludes the presentation. We can move on to the questions period now. And yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Patrick. I'm sorry, it just took me a little bit to get back.
No problem.
To unmute and all of that. It is, we did hear from some people at the time when the emergency work was done on the bridge about having sort of missed an opportunity to make all of this safer for everybody that's not in a car. And, you know, we have also heard some feedback about the lack of connectivity from CB12 into the Bronx, because, you know, sort of we have the Washington Bridge and we have the Broadway Bridge, and the Broadway Bridge is just, it's very hard. Now, obviously, these are in two different geographies, but nevertheless, it's always been a little bit of a pain point to not have like connectivity, so to speak. So let me just, get to my, I guess, so there's, you know, the Laurel Hill Terrace, the one block. I know we always want to have protected bike lanes, but is there, you know, like, I imagine we don't have a speed issue on that stub block. Like, do we get anything in terms of parking spot loss if it was not a protected for that one block?
It's we
I know
try-
that's a weird question.
Yeah, we try to maintain their protected connections as much as possible. And those they only work if they're continuous. So
yeah,
like we looked at like how we would design that, and really the only other option would be to remove direction of travel, which that's also problematic because it's kind of hard to access anything behind, like on like around the corner there, because it's so isolated. So with that regard, it is a short block, but that was for us, we felt that was the best option and safest option.
Okay. So I'm sure, and I'll let others sort of address it, we like, just if there's any way we can sort of pick up any spots anywhere else. This is just, we're always under a lot of pressure here. All right, so I'm going to go to, and then is this an item? Is this a reso item? Like, you guys need a resolution, Kimberly?
We would certainly love to have support from the CB. Yes, if possible, through a resolution.
Okay. Chamberlain?
Thank you, Debbie. I want to thank all of you for an excellent presentation. And in fact, you anticipated some of my questions, which is quite good. The first question would have been, what about the bridge capacity? But apparently you accidentally did an experiment a couple of years ago and the bridge still works. So that's a very good thing. And the other thing, of course, is you got, because you've got 3 lanes, one of them being a bus lane going eastbound and 2 lanes or whatever going westbound, you have an imbalance of capacity, but provided you have enough capacity, I suppose it doesn't matter. I think, your 2 left turn lanes, that's, at the Manhattan end is very clever, because the remaining lane, like you said, will allow the buses to proceed onto the busway. So I think, the design is probably the best you could do. And again, with very old bridges, very old streets, whatever. Now, the thing I just want to comment on, which Debbie alluded to earlier, is the reality is people still have cars, and it sounded like 22 parking spaces are going to go away. And that's a number large enough to make people rather unhappy. So I want to second what Debbie said. And in fact, we'll probably put it in our resolution that insofar as you can preserve or, create substitute parking spaces, that's something that, the members of our community would like. And the other thing is, we can't assume that cars are inherently bad in the sense of pollution, because more and more people are getting electric cars. And so that particular argument goes out the window. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
And just before I move to Maria and then Isidro, I want to say that just give a shout out to our district manager, Ebenezer, who has had his eye on this issue of the left turns, and then how backed up things were getting by not having 2 dedicated lanes. So this is something that's been an issue that he's stayed on top of, day to day, week to week, since the busway, launched, etc. So he's really shown a lot of leadership, and then on the there's a sort of pre-presentation before this one, and he's very, very in contact with DOT to make sure that we're sort of getting what we need there, which is not to get backed up behind that light and have congestion before you even sort of cross the street into Manhattan. Maria?
Thank you so much, Debbie. My question is, this is going to take how long for the making the changes and the construction on 184th Street, the Washington Bridge? Is that going to be how many years?
Well,
we
we did the Brooklyn Bridge last year, and that we started that in about probably March was when we first saw the visible changes happening, and we got that done by September. So I envision something similar to that taking place here. Bridge projects are typically a little more complex. We have to be a little more cautious. We have to just make sure we're doing everything up to snuff, because we are adding weight to a structure. But there will be different aspects of this project happening for, I'd say, several months. We have to demo through a piece of the wall on the Manhattan side. We would have to get stage all the Jersey barriers, and then bring those in, install those probably at night. Do the markings. I mean, there's a bunch of different components, signal work. So I would say it would take a number of months to do. So probably starting sometime in the spring, hopefully ending sometime in the late summer, early fall.
2024 or 2023?
Next year.
Okay. All right. The other thing is that anyone consider, I'm looking the presentation, which is fantastic. Of there's any way that we can have some tunnels that will, link the Bronx to Manhattan without, this is the open Manhattan is so congested with the bicycle and the, it's just, and the buses going back and forth. Anyone that consider, tunnels either, I live here on, near 155th Street, Yankee Stadium, and the next one is what is it, that 184th and then 207 and things like that. Is there any possibility of someone looking into that? Because I don't think that no matter how much construction and upgrading you're going to have, the congestion is going to continue. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm considering I'm going to make a little pitch for when is the construction on Riverside Drive West is going to finish from 153rd Street to 150, 160th Street. This is driving us crazy. And it's just, we just don't see the end of when the number 6 bus goes from, from our area, Riverside Drive West to the Bronx to Yankee Stadium here. But anyway, someone has to either consider having a tunnel or a second level like the George Washington Bridge to go above, because I think it's enough room. There is enough for someone to consider having a study, even if it takes 15 years. It's just terrible. It's just really crazy. So that's the only thing, Debbie. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maria, for coming. An excellent question on how long this project was, which was a very obvious one that I didn't think to ask, so thank you. I think the bigger issue with a tunnel under the Harlem River is also how would it ever get paid for? But it's a good point. We have them in other places. So, does Kimberly, is there, or Lyle, Lyle, I think you've been close to this, what the outlook on Riverside Drive is? I feel like there was a lot of confusion during the spring, and I'm not sure why, of they're sort of making it sound like the project was done, but obviously it was just a phase was done. But now that we're in this new phase, like what's the overarching timeline? Or can that be gotten from, I think it's sort of from above Valerie, or Patrick, do you know as a bridges person?
Oh, I'm a bike person.
You're right. You just happen to be going over a bridge right now.
Yeah,
Kimberly or Lyle, are you
It
able
would
to?
be Lyle. Lyle, do you have any updates or more context you can add to that?
I know that there have been some issues around the bridge area, but I can reach out to our bridges division officially. I know there have been some issues with the timeline, but I can get some clarity and get back to you.
Right. Yeah, because we certainly understand that things come up and there are issues, but like the fact that none of us know what year we're talking, we need to have it a little bit more bounded. So thank you, Maria, for reminding all of us about that. Isidro?
Thank you, Debbie. So I think the overarching problem here is the bridge and not having extra bike lanes. I think that this will have an adverse effect on our community. It will bring more congestions. The problem is not how many cars come out of to the bridge to 181, but it is the fact that we do not have the resources, unfortunately, to manpower or have personnel to direct traffic along the bridge and thus preventing traffic congestion 181. I think that DOT and the commissioner should find resources to take care of this problem. And if the commission cares about the health of our community, they should take into look in having more resources by providing more traffic agents to direct and alleviate traffic around the Northern Manhattan. 95 is the busiest by far congestion that we have. It so happened that it goes through our neighborhood. I think that DOT is lacking vision for bringing a solution to a long-term problem. Patching problems here and problems there is not gonna cut it. By creating this bike lane, you are going to take away over 21 parking spots that are critical to this community. And just by taking those parking spots alone, you're going to kill small businesses. You have to do a study on the residents and on the small businesses and take that into account. Do not make a study just on random people taking the bus and not taking into account our small businesses and of course our residents, which you have mostly time neglected them. The problem of that people are not riding the buses and the train is because of the lack of public safety and because of the inefficiencies of the system here, of the MTA and also DOT as a whole. I think that you are lacking a better vision, a larger vision to resolve this problem. And as Jim Billings said, the problems are not the cars. If it's electric, they will become electric soon. So that will not be a problem. And like Maria was saying, you should take a look into the creation or construction of a tunnel. However long that would take, that would exacerbate, that would create a better solution to the problem. But you're just exacerbating the problem and creating more traffic pollution to our community. And that'll be really, really messed up and not needed by our community. That's just my comment, David. Thank you so much. And by the way, I will not vote in favor of any resolution that will come to support this.
Thanks, Isidro. I know this is a bit of a lost cause, but I was reminded today, and anytime when I walk there and I get enraged, that I understand there's always personnel parking at a precinct, but the 34th takes up, and FDNY to some extent. I mean, do we think 70 spots, 60 spots? And it just seems like a heck of a lot. And I know the DOT, like you can't I mean, this is an issue everywhere, but like, is there anything one can do to bound it a little bit? Like, is there any limit? Is there anything that can ever be done? Because there's no parking available, you know, really, I guess from 100, is it 82nd or 83rd north, and then like radiating out. But and then also, I guess, sort of separately, but on the subject of parking, albeit meter parking, like the whole block, almost the whole block on the south side of 181st in front of Target, and then like extending a little bit on either side, has been just construction barriers for 2 years. I don't know, but like, when is that out of there? Because that's like, yeah.
Yeah, Debbie, if I may, because I do have some answers to that. Our understanding of the bid is that that's going to come up or off around the fall of next year, unfortunately.
I mean, yeah, I mean, oh yeah. So Kimberly, Lyle, can you sort of add anything of like, can we ever get some of our community parking back? Like,
I mean, I wish that I had a better response on that sort of agency parking, because we are quite strict in how many spaces we allocate for those agencies. But if they're using placards to park in places where they aren't supposed to, there isn't really much recourse on our part. So I know we've had conversations with FTNY, for example, around 181st Street. But like, we have our certain amount of space that we give, and then and it's usually much less than what is taken. But there really isn't much else that I think that we can do as an agency. I mean, other than, you know, elevating through elected officials and those sort of channels. On the
Okay,
parking,
yep.
I know it came up last week as well, and we can look at other, and I know the construction as well, we looked into as part of the follow-up from 181st Street and the busway, and if we could kind of see what was going on with all of that parking that was taken for construction, and I can follow up with Dustin to see where that conversation ended up. It sounds like maybe Isidro has more up-to-date information than I do on that. But we can, of course, look at where we might be able to add any meters or look at other regulations, add back parking, which is what we discussed last week with some of the other stakeholders.
Okay, yeah, no, that will be important. All right, we've got a bunch of attendees with hands up. So attendees, you've got 2 minutes. If you want a response from DOT and what you're saying, so then the total will go up to 3, but there's no back and forth. So like, and then that's the limit. So we're going to start with Max Murphy.
Sure, can you hear me?
I can.
I think it's rather appalling that the community board is putting the safety of bicyclists into question over 28 parking spots. You know, a lot of these congestion issues are entirely caused by cars. Bicycle trips don't really cause congestion for cars. Transit trips don't cause congestion for cars. Council or community board member Isidro, I think is really misled. We need more bike infrastructure, more transit infrastructure to reduce congestion, because congestion is caused by cars. You know, the less car trips are made, the less congestion is on our roads. If anything, we need to be reducing the amount of parking in our community to reduce the amount of cars in our community, because they kill people and they produce pollution. In terms of the proposal itself, I think there should be a second bus lane for the other side of traffic, and hopefully DOT can evaluate that. And I also think the proposal should go a little bit farther and include that fully protected bike lane on Amsterdam to connect the network. I think whoever the bicycle PM was with DOT was absolutely right. Bicycle networks only work, they're the same with car networks, right? They only work if they're connected. And this one should be connected too. If we're gonna spend all this money and time on construction, we need to make sure that it's actually gonna work for the community. And I think the way it will work for the community is if it's connected to our existing infrastructure. So those are my two thoughts.
Thank you, Max. David Vassar.
Hi, yeah, thanks. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay.
Also, I have a lot of anxiety about them not knowing how to say my name.
Thanks. So yeah, I mean, I really appreciate being able to attend this meeting and listen to this, what I think is a wonderful plan that Patrick Kennedy has given us. I'm a 66-year-old veteran cyclist in New York, and I have to say I'm pretty dismayed by this kind of AAA attitude that this transportation committee seems to have, prioritizing parking over people's safety, lives, the cleanliness of our air, and just the sheer volume of noise. And that's a form of pollution that is understated in the city. All of these costs are caused by automobiles. This is exacerbated by the fact that more and more people seem to be, also to my dismay, maybe I'm just a dismayed old guy, I don't know, but I see more SUVs and Jeep vehicles on the roads than ever. Yes, electric cars are coming into vogue, but the fact is that if our grid is powered still by fossil fuels like fracked gas and coal, the overall effect for climate is minimized by getting an electric car. And plus, you still have all the congestion and all the danger to life and limb of all of us who don't drive because of all of the cars out there. I don't know how many people I've talked to who said they simply won't ride a bike in this town because it is unsafe. I agree. I've got a lot of spunk. I'm a very savvy cyclist. I ride on Amsterdam Avenue's bike lanes. In my part of town, the bike lanes are not protected. They are standard. And the one thing I would sort of contest a little bit is the relative safety of standard bike lanes. Perhaps the injury level is a bit less, is only a bit greater with standard over protected, but the protected bike lanes give cyclists psychologically a huge incentive to bicycle on our streets. We are using a line of parked cars as a buffer between the cyclists and moving traffic, and that is a huge psychological and physical safety advantage. So I am really for this plan that Mr. Kennedy has put out. I really urge all of you to get out there on a bike if you haven't and experience what cycling is like from a cyclist point of view. And I'm lucky. I work and I live in Manhattan. It's about a 4-mile commute for me to my job. And most of it is on some kind of bike lane or another. Not everybody has that privilege. Let's extend the bike lane network. Let's make our bridges passable for pedestrians and cyclists. I use the Queensboro Bridge going into Queens, and I come back on the Triborough. Both of them have extremely narrow passages, and my visual and physical reflexes aren't what they used to be. A single slip could be disastrous. So let's do this, make all the passages, the bridges, and the adjoining access roads much safer than they are for cyclists. And yes, include protected. And let's stop prioritizing parking of privately owned cars on public space, which is what our streets are. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thanks, David, for coming out tonight. I appreciate everybody who's coming out. We love to have crowded meetings. Lucia. Sorry, you should be.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yep. Gotcha.
Great. My name is Lucia Dang. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak. I lived in Washington Heights, right on 186 and Bennett for many years. And now I live in the West Bronx. So I'm in CB5 over there, and I still come back to Washington Heights all the time to shop on, 181st. There's a lot of great restaurants over there. I go to Burger Heights all the time. And I come by bike, and I come by walking and running. I go to a CSA at the church right there on Bennett. And I go see my friends, and I take my cats to the vet up in Inwood. So I use this bridge all the time, and it's just the most dangerous, undignified, scary, unpleasant experience for folks who are walking or riding their bike. There are people who travel by scooter in that narrow 3.5 foot wide lane. So having this extra protected bike lane will remove all the cyclists and scooters and mopeds from the conflict zone with pedestrians, and it will just make this bridge that is essential for a lot of these folks who don't own cars. It'll just really be a game changer for everyone. And hopefully it'll encourage more folks to make this trip out of a car, and then that'll free up the space for drivers. And I just want to commend DOT for acknowledging, that a lot of this traffic, a lot of the congestion on the Washington Bridge really is caused by the Waze and Google apps that direct cross Bronx traffic, onto the bridge to save like 5 minutes or whatever. So the initial, congestion that might happen temporarily as a result of removing a car lane really will discourage folks from continuing to do that, and hopefully make this bridge better for local drivers in the long run. So it really will benefit everyone. One other comment I wanted to make is that, I'm a member of Transportation Alternatives, and we talked to a lot of folks. We did several in-person events, cleanup events, and we did a lot of outreach. We got over 2,600 signatures from folks, a lot of whom are using the bridge or are in the community. This proposal has huge, tremendous community support. So I think that, while you may get some complaints about loss of parking or whatever, in general, I think people's lives will be greatly improved by it. And I just had a couple of questions for DOT, and happy to take them offline, is that, the lighting on the bridge is really bad. The street lights, some of them work, and when they work, they only point on the roadway. They don't actually point or light the path itself. So when you're walking there at night, it's just pitch black, and it's really scary.
Okay, I'm sorry, Lucia, we're out of time. Jim, I'm just telling, I know, Jim, you're helping me with timing. I can't on my screen actually see you right now. So actually, Patrick, can you unshare?
My question is in the Q&A, so feel free to look at it there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, all right.
And
just because Jim's like waving at me, and then I can't see him. Much better. And then if we need to go back, we'll do so. Luke?
Yeah, can I answer the question just regarding lighting that we can definitely
yes,
do,
of course. Yes. Sorry about that.
Of the bridge to just determine that all the lighting that is there is functional and should, and if anything is not working or if anything's too dark, we can look at getting it back up to where it's supposed to be.
Okay, Luke.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Great. My name is Luke Zavados. I'm a resident in the Bronx, and whenever I go to Manhattan, I take this bridge. And as we've seen earlier on a slide here, it's often extremely crowded on the pedestrian portion. It's 3.5 feet wide, and that's shared by bicyclists, strollers, families, and I don't know if anybody here has walked or ridden a bike at a time when another person is crossing, but pedestrians have to stand up against the fence. It's so narrow. So this is a much needed improvement. I was there with Lucia for some of these outreach events, and speaking to people who were walking the bridge and asking them if they were in support of this was it was like a godsend. You know, people were like, oh my God, is that happening? When are they going to do it? I'll sign it, anything. Let me know what you want. So there's a ton of support. And I have a couple questions though for the DOT. One is, what's the status of the Southern Walkway? I know that's been closed at times. So that's one question. My other question is, McNally Plaza, is there any separation from pedestrians and cyclists? Maybe plastic delineators, anything like that? And I also wanted to make a mention how bike infrastructure is also safety for our seniors and children. I've seen other presentations that DOT has presented, and the impacts on those vulnerable populations are even greater than the general impacts. So if DOT can answer those, the Southern Walkway and the McNally Plaza separation, that'd be great. Thanks.
So I'll start with the easier one. The McNally Plaza, our plan is to use stamps on that plaza there, so there will be no separation in the plaza itself, but there would just be stamps through the plaza to guide cyclists to the spot where they would be re-entering the roadway. And then for the southern portion, yeah, we are aware the southern portion is rather trepidatious to access if you're a pedestrian. You got to go downstairs, upstairs, and that is something that we would not really be able to deal with in the course of this project. That's something where we really have to look at that from a capital perspective. I don't believe we have anyone from Bridges, at least here, to talk about that, but I know that this bridge is on a longer timeline for a capital reconstruction, but it's definitely something we would want to be able to address capitally the next time this bridge is capitally reconstructed.
Okay. Thank you. Jim, I'm sorry, did you have something on this, or was that hand for me to start paying attention?
No, I have two things. Number one, as a general principle, having more bicycles and fewer cars should be safer for vulnerable people. But that's only, and this is my point, if the people on the bicycles ride their bicycles in a safe manner. And in fact, that's often not the case. And I know several people who've been knocked down by bicycles and have been badly injured. So I don't disagree that bicycles are these wonderful things, but not the way some people are actually using them. My second question is, where are the pedestrians going to walk on the bridge? Are they going to share the bike lanes, or how's that going to work?
They would have their own, the existing shared lane that everyone has to share. That's now just solely for pedestrians.
Okay, very good. That's even better. Very good.
All right, Marcel Dejean. Oh, sorry, wait. Okay, you should be able to unmute now.
All right, yeah, I was confused for a second there, looking for the unmute button.
I'm all
I actually
causing confusion.
want to just go based on what Jim just said. I don't think, as somebody who's walked over the bridge many times, I don't think that it would be a good way, that it would be good for pedestrians to continue to have the existing space, because if two people are walking in opposite directions on that bridge, you have to turn sideways to get past each other. It's that narrow. So it should be, what should happen is the barrier that's currently separating the roadway from the pedestrian path, which, by the way, was added to the bridge, long after it was built. Originally, the bridge had like 10-foot wide sidewalks and a curb. But at some point it was, turned into the entrance lane for the Cross Bronx Expressway. But that, once the bike lane is there, that barrier isn't needed. And so the sidewalk can be 2 feet wider, because there's not going to be a Jersey barrier. There doesn't need to be a Jersey barrier. Now, there are some signs that are based in that, but even if it's just removed for part of the length of the bridge, that would make the sidewalk that much wider, and it would be much easier for, two people to walk past each other, or for somebody to use a stroller or to use a walker. So absolutely, that's something that DOT should look at doing. And I think that I think that the most important part of this is really making it so that the bridge part is wider. And even if the connections at both ends are not, protected bike lanes, perfect, whatever, it is not going to have nearly as much of an impact as the bridge itself. I have actually ridden a bike over the roadway of the bridge because the shared path or whatever, I was late, and so I was riding my bike to Fordham from Washington Heights, where I lived at the time, and I was late enough that I decided, well, it'll save me 2 minutes to ride on the roadway there, which is legal but not advised. And so I did, saved my 2 minutes, made the train, but that's something that could be avoided with this project. Thank you.
Thanks. Just Patrick, is a pedestrian lane, so to speak, will that be widened at all?
No, we don't have the ability to widen that section of the bridge as part of this project. As I said before about dealing with the south side capitally, something we want to do, of course, is to look at how wide we can make the pedestrian path on the north side. Regarding the barrier that it separates what's currently the moving traffic from the shared path now, but would be in our proposal separating bikes and peds. That actually has power running through it. So it's a little bit easier said than done to remove that as part of anything other than like a capital reconstruction of the bridge, just because like that's how all the streetlights that are there are getting power. So we have to be able to reroute that somewhere else. But it's a larger thing to deal with than just removing the barriers themselves.
Thanks, Patrick. Marco Hemken. Okay.
Hey, hello. Thank you for your time. Yeah, no, this was a really great presentation. As someone who doesn't own a car, living here, I am very clear that there's going to be a from Bronx to Manhattan and vice versa on that bridge. I have ridden across that bridge. I have walked across that bridge, and it's just absolutely amazing. And I just want to say a couple of things. Yeah, on the regarding the parking spaces, it's just 20 parking spaces. The number of people per day who would use 20 parking spaces is probably close to 20, whereas people who would use a bike lane going through that same space on any given day is going to be multiples that. So a protected bicycle lane, especially on such a dangerous road, is going to be vastly more useful to everybody using that space if it is a bike lane. And I just want to point out, yeah, as Lucia said, there were 2,600 signatures, over 2,600 signatures in support of this work, which, I mean, compared to 20 parking spaces, 2,600 is a lot. And I'm just very, very excited to hear this plan from DOT, and very much looking forward to start riding my bicycle over the bridge. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Christopher Sanders.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Community Board, for letting me speak. I'm here I'm from Harlem. I've been living in Harlem for like 12 years. Moved here with a car. I'm Black. And I started riding my bike just before the pandemic, because it was faster for me to go to work And so this new bridge treatment that you guys are proposing is relevant to me. And so I feel like, you know, Black people and the Latino people who are delivering food get left out of these conversations a lot. And so I just feel like I need to speak up in about that, and that we shouldn't erase you shouldn't erase us from these things. I mean, parking is important, but I also think we probably, neglected to fix these problems for so long that we probably need to go ahead and do this project for now, and then hopefully we'll be able to, add some parking spaces, take some of them back from the local precincts in the area, and so that way, we can, go to work. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thanks for being here. And for sharing your point about also the delivery people. It's something we talked about probably a little bit more overtly with the Dykeman Lane than came up here. It's true. Sandra Voss.
Hi, thank you so much for your time today. My name is Sandra, and I've been living in Harlem since January, but before that, I lived in the Bronx for about 8.5 years. I'm a social worker, and I used to work at Bronx Community College, so not too far from the Washington Bridge. And I can say that when I lived in the Bronx, I basically never took the Washington Bridge. The few times that I've taken it, it's almost comical how little space there is. It would be comical if it weren't so terrible. It sort of feels like, how did anyone think this would work? Like when people have described that pedestrians have to sort of back up against the side, that really is how it is, if there's a bike trying to pass or multiple people trying to pass. So I just want to thank the DOT for this amazing proposal. I think it's really needed. Anyone who has tried to walk or bike across the Washington Bridge knows how needed it is. And I just want to reiterate how enthusiastic the community support has been. When we were out there, people were just excited, and you can really see how needed this is. So thank you so much to the DOT, and I'm excited to see where this goes. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra. Josh Goodman.
Yes, hi, you can hear me?
We can.
Excellent. All right. Thanks so much for the chance to speak tonight. My name is Josh Goodman. I live on Fort Washington Avenue. There's an unprotected bike lane here, and it's better than nothing, but it's just constantly full of double parked cars. You have to weave in and out of the mainly lane of traffic if you actually want to use it, and it's ultimately just not safe. And I think that's why having a fully protected bike lane is just really important. There's been a lot of discussion about street parking tonight. I think when you get down to it, free street parking is a public subsidy of a private good. We know that cars are owned disproportionately by wealthier residents of the community. They benefit only their owners and endanger everyone around them. It is true, as some people have pointed out, that electric cars don't emit pollution at the point of use. It obviously depends on the source of power generation, ultimately their effect. But if anything, they actually might pose a larger risk to pedestrians and cyclists and drivers of other cars. They accelerate much faster. They're quieter. People might not hear them approaching. I think a board member earlier said that the problem is not the cars, but this is the worst year for traffic fatalities in the city since Vision Zero started. I think the problem is the cars. And I really strongly believe we need to invest more in infrastructure that benefits everyone rather than just a few, and that what's been presented does exactly that. I have one comment on the plan. I just wanted to say I really appreciate the LPI that was proposed on the south side of the intersection at Amsterdam. We were talking about the left turn off the bridge. I think that's a really thoughtful step to help address that, make it safer to cross the street. I think that's cool to see. And then a question I had was if there's a plan to have fixed cameras to enforce the eastbound bus lane, or if there are plans to add mounted cameras to buses on any of the routes that use the bridge.
So regarding the enforcement of the bus lane, I am from this actually started as a transit proposal and then came over to bikes. I'm the bike person presenting it. The transit people couldn't be here tonight to answer that question specifically. So I'm not exactly sure about how the enforcement will work. Sean or Kim, do either of you, are you aware of anything that I am not aware of? I mean, we can definitely get back to you about that, but
I believe that the buses that are using 181st Street already have the onboard cameras, but I would have to confirm that with the transit team.
yeah, we can confirm that.
Thanks, Patrick. London,
You can hear me? Can you hear me?
yep.
Yeah, I guess I understand about the bike lanes. It's important, yeah, because I ride a bike and I own a car. But at the same time, I think sometimes people misunderstand that at night time when the bike person can go home, either take the bike upstairs to his home or park it anywhere on a pole. You can't do that with a car. Now you stop the car person because now you turn where you can park a car into a bike lane, whereas the car guy supposed to put his car at night. So it's almost like a catch-22. Right? In the daytime and nighttime for the bike guy, he's okay, but for the car guy, he's in a jam because he has no space to put his car at night. So equally, you need to still make ways for people to park their car at the same time. Yes, I agree that cars are dangerous because I see it all the time where cars are being squashed along bicycles. Yes, it's true. But also the other thing which I drive and I notice a lot is the city bike people who put the city bike in to hold all the bikes, the lock system to hold the light. Why are most of them in the street instead of on the sidewalk? Because they're taking up parking spaces for cars, or you could use that.
Oh. Sorry, I think London, you cut out, but and just I'll sort of respond to London on the point of the city bike. Those stations are on the sidewalk where the width and the space allows it, and sometimes they need to be in the roadbed, and those get presented in the community to try to, you know, do the best we can with the proposal. Yeah, so we do try to sort of, we obviously, everybody prefers the sidewalk ones, but sometimes they need to be in the roadbed. Neil Weissman.
Hi, you hear me?
Yeah, hi, Neil.
Hi, I speak on behalf of Complete George, which is 200 organizations, communities, and elected officials calling for proper bikeways across the George Washington Bridge. I'm also public relations director for New York Cycle Club's 3,000 members, 80 of whom reside in CB12 zip codes. So I just want to speak only in support of DOT's plan to expand the bike ped and bus access across the Washington Bridge. I mean, the point is that non-motorists pay half the cost of road construction and maintenance. We deserve the decent infrastructure so that we can use these roads safely. We don't have seat belts, we don't have airbags, we're not protected by 2 tons of metal. We need the protected infrastructure at high volume roads and intersections. I mean, in 2019, New York City, 29 cyclists were killed in 2019, 25 by commercial vehicles. This isn't about unsafe cycling, it's about the failure to provide safe infrastructure. We have an opportunity to do so here on the Washington Bridge. Please take the opportunity. Thank you.
Neil, thanks. Good to see you. Brandon Tesh.
Hello. I want to thank the committee members and I want to thank the DOT for the presentation. I am a Community Board 12 resident. I lived in Washington Heights up on 190th for about 12 years. And I routinely bike to the Bronx. And like many others have stated, really one of the only ways to get to the Bronx is via the bridge. I think it's important to kind of take a step back and just acknowledge how what a large swath of residents this helps. I'm obviously in favor of the project. It helps bicyclists. It helps pedestrians. I think it's also important to not discount the help to bus riders and transit. The buses over that bridge move many people uptown and between the Bronx, connects us to the 181st Street businesses as well as the George Washington Terminal. It's not a perfect project, but we're getting there. I would echo the person's sentiments earlier about exploring the westbound bus lane. And although it's outside of the scope of this particular project, continuing to harden the bike network connection, particularly on Amsterdam, around I-95. And I don't know, in general, I'm a fan. I want to thank the DOT and everyone for listening. And I would urge the committee to vote in favor of the resolution.
Thanks for being here, Brandon. Chauncey Young.
Good evening. Chauncey Young. I'm a resident in the Highbridge neighborhood of the Bronx. Former chairperson of the Highbridge Coalition to reopen the Highbridge, and a good friend of CB12. I bike, walk, and drive between the Bronx and Manhattan on a daily basis. And as a bicyclist and as a pedestrian, I avoid the Washington Bridge because of, as many people have stated, it is very dangerous for pedestrians in its current status. It is very common that you have to stand on the cement divider to let motorcycles go by so that you don't get struck, or try to get out of way of strollers that, really you cannot pass a stroller and a bike on that pathway without somebody having to lift one of their devices up. So it really needs to be changed, and the only option is what has been provided by DOT. As a car driver who drives across that very regularly, my wife worked in Newark for a long time and traveled across that bridge all the time. We've gotten very used to the construction for many years with the reduced lanes. Without any problem, we're able to handle that. So it seems like reducing the lanes would hopefully reduce the traffic utilizing that and would make it a safer space for all users. As it is right now, it's very dangerous for bicycles and pedestrians. Thank you so much, and I hope you listen to these responses and approve this plan.
Thanks for your comments. We appreciate you being here. Eric Marzel.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm a longtime resident of CB10, so I'm only an occasional user of the Washington Bridge. But the few times I had to use it, I could not believe my eyes. It has already been stressed by others. The distribution space is crazy. I could not believe that the space, available for cyclists and pedestrians was so narrow, while there were 6 lanes dedicated to cars. So while I only bikes really that bridge, I thought it was important to come tonight and show my support for this plan. I think it's important right now that we support all plans put forward by the DOT to attribute space for cyclists and pedestrians. So I wanted to really register my support for that DOT program and encourage others to encourage the committee board members to vote in favor of the resolution. Thank you.
Thank you for taking the time. Francis Hall, you are going to be our last attendee and question.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment. I am really excited to hear about the DOT's proposed changes. They appear really well thought out and like they'll benefit the communities on both sides of the bridge. I lived on West 186th Street at Audubon for more than 7 years and recently moved to Inwood. During that time, I commuted to my job in the Bronx 5 days a week across the Washington Bridge, like most often by bike, but frequently on foot. I know the Bronx or the bridge really well. I have squeezed past thousands of pedestrians and strollers and shopping carts and delivery cyclists. I have risked my life trying to bike on the roadway because the sidewalk is so narrow. I've been groped twice on the bridge just trying to get home from work. The existing design is unsafe, it's undignified. And I think it's great that the DOT has come up with a plan that gives more space to the majority of the residents in our communities who take the bus, walk, and bike. And it's great that the construction over the past few years showed that this design will not reduce capacity by repurposing a vehicle lane for the project. Yeah, I encourage CB12 to support a resolution to implement the plan, which by the end of next year could move people between Manhattan and the Bronx way more safely and efficiently. Thanks for your time.
Thank you for taking the time to be here. Okay, Thomas Proctor. Oh, sorry, wait, let me. Okay, you should be good to go now. Thomas? Okay, Maria, I'm sorry, is that an old hand or is that your
No,
old hand?
this is a new hand, but I mean, I'd like to, you finished with the public session already?
Sorry. Well,
Oh, no. Well, okay, I'm sorry. Thomas is back and then we'll come to you. I'm sorry, Maria. I didn't realize.
Just a
you
little
were in
very
your hand.
short comment that I have. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Should I go ahead?
Yeah, actually, Maria, you go first and then we'll finish up.
Okay. See, after listening to the public session and the interest of the people with the bicycle, and I really commend them for, getting together and lobbying for people who ride bicycles. People like me that are really not a babies no more, that doing, I haven't ridden a bicycle since, long time, and I respect them. But I think that we have to focus on the problem that we have commuting from the Bronx to, Manhattan. If you stand by Presbyterian hospital, by the emergency room or any clinic, if you ask anybody that you need a taxi, Liberty taxi or whatever, they won't take people who go to the Bronx because of the congestion. And it's sad that people who are coming from seeing a doctor or whatever emergency they have, that are unable to get a ride by a whatever public transport, because they cannot get home using public transportation. So we really need to focus on how we're going to move people in our areas, from the Upper Manhattan area back and from the border. Bicycles are fine. Excuse me. I have no problem with that. With the young people that we, the people who are into exercise and things like that. Excuse me. But there are other people who do not depend on bicycles to mobilize from one place to the other. So we have to be clear about that. I'm sorry, my asthma is acting up. That's my comments. Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Maria. Thomas, yeah.
Want to first thank the community board for inviting the DOT to give this presentation, and thank the DOT for doing the work to come up with this design. I personally am pretty pleased with it. I'm a TA volunteer, Bronx resident. I've done a fair bit of petitioning with Lucia on it. I have never petitioned for anything that was easier to petition for. People cross this bridge and they are uncomfortable. Just every second you're walking across it, it feels terrible. You just show them a picture and they want to know where to sign. There are tons of people who, they're in scrubs, presumably commuting from the hospital, crossing it whenever I've been there. I guess one question I would have for the DOT right now, there's this fence that protrudes into what will become the pedestrian area. every inch of space there is needed, and I think it probably takes 4 to 5 inches of space. And you know, if you could get rid of that fence and maybe replace it with some suicide barriers that are on top of the wall, I think it would make a huge difference for people who are crossing that. And yeah, just be a fence moving. So I would hope that that wouldn't require too much capital construction. So yeah. So,
Okay,
thank you.
thanks, Thomas. Patrick or Sean, do you know if there might be better fencing that would be part of this?
We can definitely look into it. Can't promise anything right here at this meeting, but we can definitely look into it. The thing is, we'll have crews there doing work anyway. So if it's something that we can tag on to, like the installation of the barriers, but we can look into that. Like we can see if that can be done. But once again, can't promise anything beyond that. We can investigate that to see if we can get some more space on that side of the bridge.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been one positive thing about the whole Zoom life has been that we're able to hear from more people as part of our meetings. And so I appreciate everybody who's taken the time to come out. Thank you to DOT for this presentation. I mean, when the emergency work needed to be done on the Washington Bridge, and people clamored for these improvements, and we had to say, well, you know, because it was an emergency work, it didn't get scoped into the plan. And at that time, I certainly had no expectation that you would be back as quickly as you were on this issue. And so we appreciate sort of the robustness of the proposal. I guess I would like to make a motion for a resolution in favor of the proposed improvements, safety improvements on the Washington Bridge, and would be looking for a second.
I second it, David.
Second.
I would like to add something to, pretty much the resolution, because not everyone, I think, understands the economics of Washington Heights, and I think that's why sometimes Isidro is adamant as he is. There are folks here who actually need their cars, and they're not rich people, but that's how they get to work, because the bus routes don't go there, or they have to go to Long Island or whatever. And this is the way they do it. And, if it were only rich people or whatever, so I would like to add to the resolution that DOT should, do its best to minimize the number of parking spaces lost in the process. And let me comment two things. That I agree that the plan is magnificent, especially compared to the craziness we have now. And DOT is to be very highly complimented. But the other thing is, I remember walking on the Washington Bridge in its heyday, with wide sidewalks, beautiful granite balustrades, which had like portholes in them, and each one had a beautiful fleur-de-lis made out of brass or bronze. It was magnificent until, of course, people started stealing them and stuff. But and again, I've seen that. I don't think I would cross that bridge on foot. It would terrify me. So DOT is to be complimented, and I believe we should, just ask them to do the best they can, because for some of our folks, cars are not a luxury at all.
Understood. I'm happy to include a whereas that asks them to do their best to identify if there's any to be identified in the area, other locations that might be possible. Okay, I'm going to do
Let me just interrupt so we all get a parliamentary education. If you want someone to do something, it has to actually be in the be it resolved. The whereases are, why we're doing it, but So, we'll just put the words where they need to be. But I think that's a concept, a parliamentary concept that people need to understand. Thank you.
All right. And at this point, I need to
I'm
say it.
Debbie, I'm sorry, this is Maria. Just on the point of Jim about the parking, can we be a little specifics about not identifying all the places that for the parking, but just to minimize and try to minimize the loss of parking on this in the area? We
Yeah,
understand
no,
that,
it'll be worded for minimize, but this, sorry, guys, this is not a resolution about parking. It just,
no, but
it's just
I
not.
thought he was talking
Yes,
about being resolved.
yeah. I mean, yes, be it resolved and that we're going to ask to sort of minimize the loss of parking. 20 is significant for, but again, the resolution is about this proposal. So let's dial it down. Like yeah. And I'd also like to make a plug, like I cannot be the only person on this committee drafting resolutions. Like I'll do this one, but we gotta share the work better. So I hope that people will start picking up some of these. And again, I'll do this one, but
I could actually do this one if you would like, basically I need the presentation because I'm, very in favor of it. Again, it's just night and day what we're going to have. So,
okay. So why don't you do a first draft and then get it to me and then I'll do mine. But first,
very good.
Let
So
me
I just need the, the presentation.
I need to take the
Right.
roll. I need to take the roll on the vote. For the committee first, Mary?
Yes.
Okay, Bruce,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Leo,
Yes.
Jay, are you still on? Sorry.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for being here. I vote yes. Have I missed any committee members? Did anybody come in that I missed? I don't think so. Okay, Maria Luna from the community board?
Yes.
Is Isidro still here? I know he indicated earlier, I think he needed to step out, that he was against, but okay.
Marshall.
Marshall is a public member not on this committee, so I don't think he votes with the CB. He's going to vote now as an attendee. So what I'd like to do, if you are an attendee and you are in favor of this resolution and would like to vote, raise your hand, like, on the.
He says yes.
Yeah. I'm just counting. Okay, so we've got 13 yeses amongst the attendees.
It's 23 minus 5.
And yeah, no, we've got 13 hands up and then Marshall's got a hand up. So that's 14. Oh, wait. Now we've gone to 16 and 1. Okay.
I count 14.
And
Oh.
then, I'm sorry, and then,
Yeah,
but
I
it's just like, we have Janine who's from DOT, so I don't think she's, in terms of the non-hands, okay, so, okay, so motion has passed. Thanks again to everybody who carved out time tonight to be here. We love having such a big crowd. I'm just looking through. I think that's kind of what we've got for tonight. Does anybody, am I missing anything that I said I would follow up and haven't addressed? Anything on old business? I will next month, we may have something on the agenda about so you know how we've gotten a lot of comments, even though it's not like so much for our committee, about speed cameras and enforcement on our streets. And it's a long story, but somebody sort of brought us some template resolutions, but one of those is on that home rule, like, can we actually control enforcement on our streets through speed cameras? So I may have that presented in December. And then actually another one that relates to something that came up a lot tonight, which is how are we prioritizing like basically our street space and the curb, something that came up in the DOT, like sort of 5-year strategic plan. And, but obviously comes up just generally as we now have restaurants in the street, and we have bike infrastructure going in, and we have, whatever, sort of myriad things. We don't seem to have any place to actually for people to block up their bike, all the myriad things that people, street parkers, blue. There's a lot of competition. So probably then maybe do something on that the following month. And that's it. So thanks to everybody for hanging in tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Bruce, thank you. Everybody have a great month. Jim, I'll get you stuff for the resolution. Thank you, Team DOT, for all of this and sticking with us tonight. And I'll see everybody soon enough. And thanks, Chanel.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you. Good night.